what is going on so that you're afraid every day? And if everyone in the population because it fucking seems like it, is afraid every day, to me, that's very telling. And it's like very curious because we say that we are safe, but why does everyone feel afraid?
Yeah.
So we must not be safe. Like, so then what's the deal?
Right.
Is it an actual lack of safety, or is it something that we like some component of safety that isn't there anymore or that isn't available to us?
Right.
The Always Be podcast. Hello, everyone,
Welcome back.
to the Always Be podcast.
Where we talk about everything transpersonal.
Transpersonal.
Today we're going to be talking about anxiety through a transpersonal lens or transpersonal perspective.
Yes, this is part of the series that we're starting, that is looking at DSM, like clinical diagnostics from a transpersonal point of view. And full transparency, this is the second time we've recorded this podcast, because the first time we recorded it, there was technical difficulties and we weren't able to produce it properly. So we're both a little bit bummed about that.
Second time's a charm.
Second time's a charm. I'm not doing it a third time. So if this one doesn't work, then there just won't be an anxiety episode. The energy behind anxiety is keeping this episode from being produced.
That's true. That's so interesting.
All I feel is like I know we made the anxiety episode while we were in the middle of the expression workshop, and we were doing it like in the fear week. So it was like the fear and anxiety week. It was very fear and anxiety heavy, and you and I were both in a place of fear and anxiety like that week.
Yeah. So true. It'll be intriguing to see how the episode is different.
No.
I mean, are you currently in a fear and anxiety state?
No.
I don't know if I am. Let's do vibe check.
Vibe check. What's the vibe?
I'm so tired. I'm really going to try to energize myself. Yeah, what's the vibe? You first.
Oh, I thought that was like going to be the beginning of your vibe check-in.
No, I don't have anything yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm feeling, well, in this present moment, yeah, a little sleepy. Yeah, just a little tired. Oh, so we're just gonna be vibing off that energy today, you and me both. Um, what's the general vibe of my whole life right now? I'm really feeling a lot of happiness. Just feeling really calm, really happy.
It's so good.
I know. It's really, really good. It's like, I know I don't sound happy as I'm saying that. I feel happy. But it's like peace. Like it's just, I feel like yeah, I'm feeling good. Yeah, I feel good. I haven't been feeling as much motivation to do work related stuff. So I don't know what that's about. Clearly, I'm not. I just feel I'm in this. Okay, the other vibe is like not overthinking it too much and not seeking, not trying to dig so much into my own psyche and my own present moment experience, and like not trying to, and trying to just be in a place of more actually enjoying the flow. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to like wring out all the meaning, and like it's a little bit of a perfectionisty thing that I think happens with a lot of people, and like who get into their like work, their self-work, where I'm like, what is my like highest goal? Like how am I being trapped by my own patterns in this moment? Like how am I being present enough? Am I being attuned enough? Where are my fears? Am I sensing all the things? And I get in this place where I'm really trying to do a lot of stuff. And so the vibe is maybe just letting a lot of that go. Because sometimes I just am just in my head a lot, really trying to be like, but what is the core and how is
Mhm.
this? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good message. Yeah, that's a good message. I think I'm a little bit in that place of like trying to wring it out, like just feeling a lot of external pressure and confusion. Like the other day, actually, I wrote like I want to be in the more in the flow and be more like water. So I'm also trying to lean into that, but I'm trying to control the circumstances in which I can flow instead of just like flowing, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel really confused about my role as a working person.
Hmm.
Like, not my purpose, you know, that's clear, but how to, hmm, what's the word? Like, what's the word when you take something and you make it come to life? Actualize?
Hmm. That definitely would work.
Yeah, like how do I actualize my purpose in a capitalistic way? Not just in a energetic, soul rewarding way, but like literally. Yeah. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I've been talking to you a bit about this like video project that I'm working on. And I was like editing these videos from 2 years ago. And I'm in the exact same place. It's so fucking annoying. Like watching
Hmm.
these videos and hearing myself having the same internal dialogue that I'm having right now, where I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, I've been saying that for 2 years. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's,
It's like a question. Do you ever feel like a question is almost like a trap? Like it's just like an energy siphon. Like what am I supposed to do? It's such an energy siphon question because it's like you could just sit there and spiral forever. Because I don't think that's like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think there's maybe something like empty in that question that can keep you there forever?
yeah.
Because there's just like probably nothing you're supposed to do. Like that, I think it like takes you back to this place of like this like weird, it's like an existential thing. This like, to me, that's where it takes me into that like nihilistic not nihilism where I'm like there's just nothing, there's nothing I'm supposed to do, What does that mean?
Yeah.
What do I do with that? I'm just what, supposed to enjoy this plane and have a good time?
Right.
Yeah. To me, I'm like, I think it's like the fear of that being true that keeps me in this spiral. I'm like, I can't just enjoy. I can't just sit, like, I'm sitting on this beautiful, like, I just got handed, Avery knows, I just got handed basically like everything I've ever wanted. And I'm sitting here being like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do something else. I like
Yeah.
can't just sit and have a, I just like can't just, yeah.
I know. It's like it's almost like maybe there's nothing to figure out.
Dude.
But if that's the case,
I
but
was like,
if that's the case, here I'm gonna question that. If that's the case, why do I feel like this?
be like, what?
I feel like there's something I haven't figured out yet. I feel like somebody knows, some future version of myself or some higher power or some whatever knows what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't mean doing as in spending all of my time. I mean doing as in working, like
Yeah.
a role, some role that I'm meant to embody. And I haven't figured it out yet. And the roles that I'm in right now don't feel right. So why do I feel that way if they are supposed to feel like if they are right? Why doesn't it feel right? Is it just that my expectation of what right is wrong? Like, oh my God.
Spiraling down
Ah.
to the thinking. Okay. Yeah, it does kind of feel like these are like, yeah. It feels like, yeah, it just feels like empty sentences, like empty ideas. Does that make sense? Mm, just when you're talking about like,
I guess it makes sense. It feels like an empty experience. I feel like I'm in limbo.
I'm just wondering if sometimes there's like, maybe you're in communication with like your future self, because sometimes there's like, I'll like, I've taken this in before from like maybe Hoffman, where they talk about like acknowledging where you're at and where you want to be, and recognizing that there's tension between that, like that there's a feeling of not being there yet,
Mm-hmm.
this sort
Mm-hmm.
of like discomfort, and it's like a tension. So there's just this like, I know where I'm going, but why aren't I there yet kind of thing. But then it's
I don't
sort
know
of,
where I'm going.
you don't know where you're going.
And every week, every day, I have a new idea, and then it flutters away. And then sometimes it comes back, and then sometimes it flutters away. Like it's like,
Yeah.
so I can't attach enough to anything. I can't attach to something strong enough to have the motivation to take action to drive after that thing. Even though I am doing, like, okay, we really could just spend this whole podcast evaluating where I'm at right now. So maybe we just move into the anxiety conversation and see how it unfolds. But
Yeah. Are you writing something down?
I wrote, maybe I'm in communication with my older self. I'm going to sit with that and see if it makes more sense later. Because if she knows, she better fucking tell me. Because I'm tired of playing these games. Like, literally, send a message, babe.
Okay, yeah, we can like keep moving
Let's keep
forward.
it moving.
Let's keep it moving because Lord knows we want to talk about anxiety.
Lord knows. That's all we care
Lord
about.
knows. God, I am tired of talking about anxiety, if I'm being honest with you. This, like, I'm just having anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. I hate that word. I've decided I hate it. And I don't want to
Why do you
use
hate
it.
it?
I don't know. Everyone just uses it all the time. I'll even use it. I'll be like, this situation is giving me anxiety. Why? I'm gonna stop saying that forever now and moving into the future.
What would you say instead of anxiety?
Maybe just afraid. Don't you feel like
Hmm.
it's like covering up for a fear? Because nobody wants to admit they're afraid of something.
Right.
So I'll be like, oh, I'm just getting anxiety. It's just fear. It's the same thing.
Yeah. But it's harder to say, oh, I'm afraid that I may not be capable of handling this unknown future situation
Yeah.
than to be like, I'm anxious.
I'm anxious.
I
I
mean,
mean,
right, that's my squeaky, squeaky chair. That's the
in a
energy of
fear,
anxiety, right?
I'm in a fearful state. Okay, so do we want to start by reading the DSM just so we
Yeah,
have
let's
an idea?
read the DSM and see how they talk about it.
Okay, this is the most exciting part of the podcast. Okay, and by the way, I don't remember if we said this in the first recording, but the general anxiety disorder entry is on page 222, which is exciting. Okay, there are criteria A through F. A is excessive anxiety and worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months. How cyclical? What a cyclical like definition. And if you have general anxiety disorder, you have anxiety and worry. Okay. B is the individual finds it difficult to control the worry. C is that the worry and anxiety are associated with three or more of the following: restlessness or feeling keyed up. Two, being easily fatigued. So you're either restless or you're fatigued. Difficulty concentrating, irritability, muscle tension, or sleep disturbance. So you need three of those things. And then D, E, and F is basically just saying like it's causing. D is what we talked about with depression. D is the one that says these symptoms are causing significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. That's why it's dysfunctional. And then E is just basically saying it's not due to like some other physiological thing like drugs or medical conditions. And F is basically saying it just doesn't make sense to have it's not another mental disorder. So excessive worry, excessive. It's like all this stuff. It's like whenever you're reading these things, it just becomes so apparent how much personal judgment and um like how variable these things can be because excessive is also such a subjective word. What is
Well, yeah. Didn't it say more days than none? Like more days than not?
well, it says you need to be having excessive worry more days
Hmm.
than not. You know what I mean?
I
It's
see.
saying that the
Yeah.
worrying, the excessive worrying is happening frequently.
Right.
So it's like how much, I
Well,
guess, how much are we, how often are we supposed to be feeling fear?
not as often as we do.
You think?
Well, remember when we were talking about like survival mode and the limbic
Yeah.
brain and like how we perceive fear, like we perceive death, fear of
Mm,
death, fear of
yeah.
harm in situations where they're completely uncorrelated. Like, oh, my partner hurt my feelings. I feel like I'm going to die. Well, no. You know,
Yeah.
they're not threatening you with a weapon and I mean, let's say in this situation they're not. They're arguing and they say they're going to leave. And your system might respond in the same way as like, "Oh my god, I'm going to die." Well, that doesn't actually mean that you're under threat and that you might die. It just means
Yeah.
you're uncomfortable, but we can't always distinguish between the two. So our nervous system responds to our thoughts as if um, they're survival mode,
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah. Our like fight or flight is a light switch. It's not like a dimmer. It doesn't have these, it's just like it's either active or it's not active.
Yeah.
So that's why it's everything's just life or death. It feels like.
Well, what's so interesting to me about the DSM is it's just literally the Western, like the Western framework in general. It's not, oh, what does anxiety feel like and what makes up anxiety and how do you know if you have anxiety? It's just like you have anxiety if you feel anxious. It's like, what if people don't know the difference between feeling anxious and feeling afraid or feeling
Yeah.
anxious and feeling excited and motivated? Like what if they like we don't know. That's kind of part of the problem is like we can't always differentiate between the nuanced emotional experiences that we're having, and so we say we're feeling anxious. Well, if you're excessively anxious and you get diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, it could so quickly take you down a path where away from sort of like your emotional self-awareness, because a lot of times people will get anti-anxiety medication if they
Yeah.
get prescribed generalized anxiety disorder because they're having excessive anxiety and they need to
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about this where it's like, this is, say you have excessive, whatever, worry most days. The clinical model is like, how do we treat this feeling of worry? I would be like, I'm curious about like like what has happened for you so that you are afraid every day?
Mm-hmm.
What is going on so that you're afraid every day? And if everyone in the population because it fucking seems like it, is afraid every day, to me, that's very telling. And it's like very curious because we say that we are safe, but why does everyone feel afraid?
Yeah.
So we must not be safe. Like, so then what's the deal?
Right.
Is it an actual lack of safety, or is it something that we like some component of safety that isn't there anymore or that isn't available to us?
Right. Well, I think being disempowered systemically, like say um, dependence on money has
Yeah.
disempowered us from an old way of like skill and ability and self
Yeah.
sufficiency being like what we rely on. Now we rely on money,
Yeah.
and money provides a bunch of stress because it's like, how can you do a job to earn a certain amount of money? But anyway, the system disempowers you because it's oppressive and it's not built equally. So we say we're safe, but are we safe?
Well, so what you're saying is like it's a mental So because of disempowerment, we don't feel safe.
So we're anxious all the time
Yeah.
because
But I'm curious if we like actually aren't safe. I'm like, are
I
people
know.
stepping up on something legit?
Well, that's the thing. If some other entity is in charge of your sense of security, meaning like right now, I'm stressed because I have to pay my rent and I don't have enough money coming in from my private practice to pay my rent. So I have to get another job. What other job do I get? Like, that's putting me in a state of anxiety because somebody else has the money that I need to pay my bills to live here.
Yeah.
And I have to show up in XYZ way for that money to be given to me. So it's not like a self sustaining, community where like there is no, well, I don't know if that's a good example, but the point is like we've moved away from sustaining ourselves through like doing work to to secure our like safety and
Yeah.
our food and our like communal give and take. And it's now, if I'm not a suck up to my boss, I won't get my Christmas bonus and then I can't buy Christmas presents for my kids. So I have to like take all of the emotional abuse that I get from that boss in order to give Christmas presents to my kids. Like we're in this very different
Yeah.
give and take society where I don't think we actually, I think we're anxious all of the time because other people hold the power over our security, not
Yeah.
us holding the power of our own security.
And I'm curious if you feel like, so I understand the money angle, but I'm curious if it also could be, in addition to this or instead of that, the individualization component, because it's sort of like you, Avery, are responsible for all of your own shit. Like, and that, and I think that I wonder if there's like, 'cause I'm just curious if this is just a thought experiment. Like, I wonder if inherently we just know that we don't have the capacity on our own to survive.
Totally.
I've been watching Alone a lot recently. And I just, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And but that's like not a way that people live. I mean, that there's survival circumstances. It's like, yeah, you can survive on your own. And like, we all love a good survival story. I wonder why we love a good survival story. I mean, that's the deal. It's like we're all literally in a survival scenario. We are all like, we're on alone because
Yeah.
like this whole mentality that me by myself is responsible for all of my needs. And I have to go out into this like jungle and like figure out how to build my own shelter and get my own food and keep myself healthy. And I wonder if that's just like we just know that that's not possible. And yet we're told that we're supposed to make our whole lives happen without any help. Like we don't that's my so maybe this is reflecting our personal things is like you're having a money thing. I'm having like I shouldn't get to I shouldn't be like I'm having resistance in my own personal life right now to being given things or to having somebody help me out in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not having resistance enough to say no to it. Like I'm
Yeah. I mean, I
because it
don't think we can survive alone. Like, even in the show, most of the time people tap because they miss their families.
yes.
And even in the show, they don't always show you that, like, every week they have human interaction with the med checks. So it's like they just kind of have created this, sort of fake reality scenario for entertainment. But in real fucking life, like it's you cannot do it alone. People will prove that wrong because they inherently are trying to prove it wrong. But if there was no mission to try to prove that wrong, we would just be, we are communal, collaborative creatures. Like we're not designed to be alone.
Yeah. But I don't think that we're like designed to make our lives on our own.
Or so independent. Like, yeah,
It's like, well, the thing about purpose, like that you were talking about earlier, is like now we're getting a little away from anxiety, but like you were talking about purpose. And it's like what you really want is a role in your community where you're using your skills to help people. And if we all had a better understanding of our community's needs, then we would be able to be like, oh, I'll be the person. Like, have you ever been in a group project and it's like, who's going to make the outline? And I'm like, me. It's going to be me because that's what I like to do.
mm-hmm.
It feels like
I'm like, I'll present all the information.
you're sort of like, well, this is like, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Avery's like, I know where my skills are. And I feel like this is, but just like a little bit to what you were talking about like, what's my role? It's like,
Yeah,
what do your people need? Well,
right.
yeah, I just think about like, and it sucks that like the things that people need don't always like that's the thing that I start to get in like a little bit of a fussy thing where I'm like, what people need are teachers, are people who like are healers, people who are people who do plumbing and building and farming. And those people are literally like rewarded some of the least amount in our society, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
And we're like rewarding all of these people. Like it's just all ass backwards. So you're stuck between feeling like wanting to show up in a way where you're filling the role in your community that's a need, but then also trying to like make a living in the
Yeah.
world. Because like I think about how, yeah, like I love, yeah, there's like, yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about like how much I like taking care of kids. You know what I mean? But then it's like if I want to make a living taking care of kids, then I have to like see look, my whole system just got so overwhelmed because I used to be a teacher, so I know what it's like. And it's like I have to what? Like there's just we just make it so hard. We make it so hard.
Yeah. That's
The
why
anxiety
everyone
is
is
real.
anxious.
Yeah, the anxiety is real.
Yeah. It's like a lot of people's arguments right now is like, is something wrong with you? Like, do you have panic disorder? Do you have depression? Do you have whatever? Or are you just having a normal, natural response to an impossible system that
Yeah,
you were born and forced into?
yeah,
Like, all of us have depression and anxiety. You look at all the kids these days, like, I mean, middle school, high school, like adolescent aged kids, they all want to die. Like, what the fuck? Because of the internet, because of social media, because of this, like, all the pressure that is on them, probably the messages that they were told about how our planet's like dying and it's their responsibility. And, whatever world they were like born into creates the pressure and the stress, especially when there's so much like the younger generation's going to save us, like that, you know, all of that combined leads to just the most unhealthy system for a young mind to be growing in. So they have no other option other than to want to tap out. Like, obviously not every kid is like that, like, but the rates are so high that it's really scary. And it's not because there's something wrong with all of them, it's because it's like out of their control what system they have to be in relationship with all of us. Like, I've talked about this before, like within the depression episode, it's like I take antidepressants just because I need to be a functioning member of capitalism. But if I didn't have to be a functioning member of capitalism, I probably wouldn't take them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like the deal is like I'm just noticing like how quickly a whole population can be disempowered if you just have one, like all of the adults only know how to cope.
Yeah.
So like they're basically like, here's how I cope. And then the
Yeah.
kids are like, is that what I'm fucking gonna look forward to? Like,
Yeah.
uh, this is my future. Like they're looking. I see this with like some of my adolescents, right? They're like, I, I don't want to do what mom and dad are doing
Mm-hmm.
because they're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I've never met a genuinely happy person in my fucking life.
Yeah. And that's what therapy is too. It's all coping techniques.
All
Even
coping.
when you read the DSM, it's
Yeah.
like, wait, nobody's going to talk about the problem? Like,
Well,
we're just going to be like,
I was even like reflecting on like when we do our workshop again, I want to change the fear thing because even when we did our fear thing, we went right to coping. We were
yeah,
like, how do you cope with fear?
yeah,
How do you regulate your nervous system so that you're not afraid? I'm like fucking like the fear. I'm first of all, there's two things that I want to say. Number one, maybe the fear is right. Like maybe the fear is right. And it is scary. It's like if we just like let ourselves recognize how fucking scared like that it is not cool. It's not okay. We are being I just think about it's the abuse thing all over again. You're like, this is fine, this is fine. I'm getting breadcrumbs. I'm getting breadcrumbs, I'm fine, I'm fine. If you really let yourself like process how afraid all of the fear all of the time, then you'd be like, I don't want to be here anymore. And it's also really scary to like get out and to make a change.
yeah. So, like, part of the thing that I think really stuck with me about the fear and anxiety workshop was the piece of like people not feeling capable of handling or taking care of themselves in a future
Yeah.
situation. Like, I know a lot of the people in my life who have a lot of anxiety and worry are very future oriented. What if, like, they want to be able to plan and prepare ahead of time for all circumstances so that they can feel ready in case and whatever, so they can feel ready, right? I don't think that way. I just go and show up and I have a little bit more space for things to not go according to plan because I think it's just like, well, it'll get figured out either by me or by somebody else. Like my brother, we went on a hike and he was like anxious because he read a sign a week ago about how some of the parking at the trailhead was going to be blocked off. And he was like recalling the dates when the parking was going to be blocked off, and he was like, I don't know if we should go to the trailhead. Like, and I was like, what? Like, we'll just figure it out. Like, we'll park somewhere else or we'll park where there's parking. Like, what do you mean? And that was such a clear
Yeah.
distinction between like an anxiously minded person and a not. Like, he didn't want to arrive at the trailhead and not have a plan for what was going to happen if there wasn't enough parking for us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, because you don't, and we had been working on, the workshop, so it was like very fresh in my mind of like, you don't think you can handle finding a parking spot somewhere else, or handle making a different
Yeah.
decision or figuring it out in the moment.
Yeah. This ability to allow the unexpected is very, it's like very interesting because like I have that same thing too, where I will start to be more anxious, like something that's giving, like I'm going to go to a party tonight and it's like something that's making me feel less anxious is like the fact that I've been to a party there before. And so I'm already know where I'm going to park and I already know like who's likely to be there and that it's like, but like the first time I go to somewhere new, I'm always thinking like what if there's no parking? What if there's some like I have that same thought in my brain. It's so silly. Why do I care? It's like I need to be able to picture everything before I start, before I go. And if I don't have a clear picture, I can't move. I can't go. Also thinking about like how that's like how we get also like energetically get stuck in ruts. I'm like, I'm just going to do the same thing I've been doing instead of trying something different because
Mm.
then I know how it's going to make me feel.
Hmm.
And then we just end
Yeah.
up stuck because I'm just like creating the same situation that I'm in because I won't go into something new because like there is a lot less fear in staying in the same place.
Right.
But then it's weird because then we have anxiety too. Like, so what is that? Like, is it just that if we've kept our lives and our routines very small for a long enough time, then when we do have to make something else, we get so scared about it.
Um,
Which came first, the anxiety or the tiny loop?
I kind of feel like it has to go back to the like, what is making you so afraid?
Yeah.
Like, at what point in your life did you feel unable to take care of yourself, unable to handle it? Did somebody say something to you that made you feel incapable of trusting yourself or making your own decisions or something like that? Because there's people who are wired to be high anxiety, like always thinking in the future, not in the present. And then there's people who are wired always in the past, like, in a state of regret or a state of um, not wanting to try something new because the past is secure or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot to it. You're so anxious because you're afraid for your life. You're afraid for the ability to take care of yourself. You're afraid it's not going to go according to plan. You're afraid something bad's going to happen. A lot of anxious thoughts are like, what if something bad happens? I don't want to feel bad. You know, I don't want to feel bad at all.
Yeah.
And if I go in that parking garage and there's an earthquake, I might die. So I'm never going to any parking garage because I don't want to feel the fear of worrying that an earthquake might hit. Like, I know multiple people who have parking garage anxiety. And I'm like, wow, I've never in my life thought about a parking garage during an earthquake. Like, maybe they saw some video at some point in their life,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I have anxiety around really tall buildings because of 9/11. I don't like being any downtown area. I don't like being near any skyscraper. It gives me anxiety, makes me feel afraid. I'm like, this building might get hit by a plane and fall and crash down on top of me.
Yeah. I have that now with big crowds because I've read about all those like shootings, and like there was the one in Vegas, and I remember my boss at California Pizza Kitchen got killed there. Like I so now when I'm in a crowd, if I start to let my brain go towards this like image of like someone coming into that crowd with like a weapon, and then all of these people, like just right now in this moment, just thinking about it makes
Yeah.
me so afraid.
Yeah.
That's like a big old fear. But this, okay, so wait, I want to go back to this YouTube video because after we did our fear and anxiety week, I watched this TED talk, and I'm just going to like plug it. It's called How to Overcome Fear, and overcome is in quotes. And the dude is Trevor Reagan, spelled Ragan. And he basically says, so he's like your amygdala is activated by these four things: uncertainty, attention, change, and struggle. So that like, but he's also giving the, basically in the video, he's like, all those four things are present every time you put yourself in like a situation that's going to help you grow as a person. Like if you're putting yourself into a new situation where you're trying something new, you're like learning to do a new skill. There's change, there's struggle, there's uncertainty. Sometimes there's attention, especially if you're in a public space and you're being seen. Like if you're like us as facilitators, if we're being facilitators for the first time, we're like, we don't know how it's going to go, and people are looking at us. This is new and it's hard.
Yeah.
And so his whole thing is basically like, he's like, whenever I feel fear, I know I'm going in the right direction.
Hmm.
He's like, fear is a compass. And whatever is making you feel that fear is actually where you should go.
So, what would he say in the circumstance of like somebody who is self sabotaging or like really making risky decisions?
Like, tell me, like what?
Like,
I'm supposed to like decide what he would say, but yeah, but give me the.
well, I haven't seen it, so I don't know how much detail he gives, but like, let's say, you're in a relationship with somebody who makes you very afraid. They're very volatile. They are reactive. They like, would staying in that relationship be the same thing as moving towards fear? Like,
Yeah, but you and I have both left abusive people. Like you and I know that it was actually the scariest thing to leave. The whole relationship, the most fear I ever felt was making the decision to like get out of there.
that's true.
And so, like, I understand there's like nuance and things, but I'm thinking about like, say, people who are self harming, they don't feel fear
You're
before they
right.
self harm. That's not part of that
No,
experience. The self harm is coping. So it's not like
right.
a lot of times
That's
people
what I was
self,
thinking, like with like, yeah, like with drugs. It's like
yeah,
people aren't afraid that they're going to overdose. They just don't
no,
care.
they
So they're
don't.
like just going to keep doing more drugs.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that there's like, I think that obviously there's a line, right? Because it's not like, oh, look, there's like a scary person. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's trying to say like you should avoid your natural instincts, like head out
But like
into the,
adrenaline seekers, right? Like there's some
well,
of the people who do the craziest things, like achieve some of the craziest things as a you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
set
yeah,
records, or like people who are
yeah,
like, I want to be the first person ever to climb this mountain. It's like, damn.
yeah. Well, I think that like not letting fear be a stop sign, letting it be like a inquiry for curiosity, because obviously it's like if I'm driving somewhere, if I'm walking somewhere alone at night and I get a bad feeling, it's not like, oh, hey, let's walk up towards that strange man. Like, I don't think I understand, like, that's not what it's talking about, because
Right.
very rarely that we're actually in that kind of fearful situation. I mean, I know that everyone's life is different and privilege exists. So I'm lucky enough to not have that many sketchy situations in my life right now. But I mean, like, in terms of what is the scariest thing, like, what is made, like, I feel scared to say I want to, you know what I mean? Like, I feel scared to, like,
What are you afraid of?
well, I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, presently in my present moment experience. Like, I was having a lot of fear around expressing, like, how I genuinely felt, like, in my relationship, with people, because I was like, oh, they're going to think XYZ thing.
I see.
Like, that was a
So fear
fear.
of judgment.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And it was like keeping me from just being able to genuinely talk about how I felt. My story was like, everyone's going to think I'm crazy.
Mm.
But that's just like my little person. That's like a little example, right? Or I'm too afraid to, I don't know.
It's like I'm afraid of living a small life because it's easier.
Hmm.
Or like settling in the past has come a lot in my personal relationships, like staying with someone when I realize that they can't meet my needs or expectations, and like staying for too long or settling for less, like
Yeah, but
with
doesn't that feel like you're just describing like a you're like having like settling seems like it's the opposite of like going after what is scary.
it is the
You're
opposite.
yeah, like you're saying your fear is basically, I don't know what to say. That's it.
It's like I'm afraid I'll let fear win.
You're afraid you'll let fear win. Yeah, that's
I'm
so
afraid of,
convoluted. So convoluted. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Because then what
so
you're
really that's not it. It's
really what
like
you're
I'm afraid
experiencing, yeah, you're actually
I'll
just afraid to go.
fail.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
afraid of trying something really hard and really big and then failing,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
That makes more sense.
yeah. I
But,
think it's
those are two sides of the same coin. It's like you either try or you never try, but you're afraid either way.
Wait, what is the last thing you said? I was laughing at the try or never try.
It's like you're going to be afraid either way.
You're going to be afraid either way. But one, like, in that, like, when we were talking about fear, it was like confidence. You don't wait for confidence to take action. Confidence comes from taking action. So what
Yeah.
happens is, like, we talk about the different levels of walls. So you reach the wall, it's huge. You go through all the stuff, you climb the wall, you get over it, and you look back, and the wall looks a lot smaller from the other side. But what happened is you just got bigger. So the more that we embrace the things that are scary, then they don't become scary anymore. And then we have more
Hmm.
confidence and more capacity. And the problem with, like, I think it's like it's a growth thing. So like God is going to throw at us the next biggest wall. And that means that we're afraid, and then we get afraid, and then we have to climb it, and then we get bigger, and it goes like that on and on and on. So we're always feeling like we're conquering the same level of wall. Like it's all the wall always feels really big and scary. And then
Yeah.
once you're past it, you're like, that wasn't that scary. And I'm so glad that I did that. But you've already climbed so many walls, so now you're just gonna have bigger and bigger walls.
But how do you know what I think the wall that I'm experiencing right now, I can't figure out how to climb.
That's how it always feels.
But how do you figure out how to climb it? Like,
That's the whole point.
yeah, that's the whole point.
It's the whole point. You have a wall.
Yeah. I am just becoming aware of the time.
Yeah, I've been looking at it too.
So, do we have any last thoughts about transpersonal perspective of anxiety?
Mm. Mm. Well, I think that last one that I was saying about like God and the walls feels transpersonal a little.
Yeah.
And transpersonal anxiety. Yeah, disempowerment can sometimes also come from a lack of alignment to your own essence and your soul and your own divine capacity.
Mhm.
Like I think that there is a inherent we have our like it kind of a lot of times comes down to like a worth thing, a separation from God thing, a like we're just limited, small, incapable beings, when in reality we're like unlimited beings with complete access to the creative force. And so we're disempowered energetically in a lot of ways too,
Mhm.
by like our mindset. You could like however you want to, whatever you want to say is disempowering us.
Mhm.
Shape shifting reptilians. There's like, yeah, energetically, we've also been disempowered, I think, to
Yeah.
understand like our true creative power, our full creative freedom, like our own ability to actually just like create the life that we want and believe it and feel like I'm doing this. I'm a divine creator. I feel like we
Yeah.
lose sight of that a lot.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that like we're coming home to.
Yeah. Creative power and creative capacity. It's almost like, yeah, I think the two go hand in hand for sure, but like feeling disempowered from your own creative potential also makes you feel disempowered with like everything else.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of people are like, I'm not creative.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're literally the only thing you are is creation, but okay. What do you mean you're not creative? Like, what?
That's the only thing you are.
All you are.
All you are is creative.
Yeah,
That's
man.
that's funny. Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap it up
Yeah.
with a what are you working on?
I think I talked about it a little bit in the beginning. I am working on receiving and surrendering.
Oof, those are hard,
Yeah.
but good.
But good.
I am working on, I think, reframing my experience to be more empowered, like trying to be really conscientious of the language that I'm using and making sure that it doesn't inherently put me in a like disempowered, stuck place. Like, you know, when you were saying it all feels
Yeah.
empty, like I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know what to do. Like, it makes me feel disempowered. So if I just even use different language for where I'm at
Yeah.
right now, I think that'll be helpful.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The vision of Always Be Collective is of an inclusive, innovative, and intuitive healing practice that uses wisdom from the mind, body, heart, and spirit. We strive to establish a community of mental health practitioners who share a common goal to expand beyond the limitations of the current mental health care system. We provide services aimed towards individual and collective healing. You can visit us at alwaysbecollective.com.